What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be doing part 1 of my domino reduction tutorial. So, if you don't know, domino reduction is an FMC technique that reduces the cube down to only needing to use F2, R2, L2, B2, U and D moves. It gives you very, very efficient solutions. People average like sub 25 with it globally. Most people use it on almost all of their solves, except if it's like a really easy block buildable solve. So yeah, it's a very useful technique, and I will be showing you how to get to this state in part 1, and then how to finish into a solve for part 2. So, I'm gonna assume you already know basics of like edge orientation, nis, and insertions, and I'll be going over everything, but I'm assuming you know the basics. So, the first thing you want to do when doing domino reduction is you want to do edge orientation. So edge orientation reduces the cube to only needing to use U, R, L, D, F2, B2 moves. And you don't even need the F2, B2 moves. This just help make your solutions more efficient. This reduces like the number of moves you need and can generally make your solves more efficient, giving you better cases, etc. So basically what you want to do is edge orientation. I'll quickly go over the different cases. So this is what edge orientation looks like. Basically, yeah, all your edges are oriented. So if you have 4 unoriented edges, you want to get all of them onto the front or back face. So if you look here, this is an unoriented edge, as if you tried to solve it with F2, B2, R, L, U, D moves, you can't. You get it flipped in place. So that's basically how you recognize the edges. So we have 1, 2, and then 3, and this last one, 4. So if you have 4 bad edges, what you want to do is you want to put them all onto a front or back face. Oh, by the way, when doing edge orientation, you have 3 axes that you should check. Blue/green front, white/yellow front, and orange/red front. So this is a green/blue front EO case. So you want to get all your bad edges onto one face, like that, and then just do an F or B move, and you have edge orientation. If you have 6 bad edges, you want to put 3 on the front or back, do an F or B, and you'll have 4 bad edges. If you have 8 bad edges, you want to put 4 on the front or back, do an F or B, and then you'll have the 4 bad edge case again. Or you can put all of your good edges on the S slice and then do an FB. If you have 10 bad edges, pretty much just ignore it. But I mean, if you have to, put some number of edges on the front or back. I guess like an even number of edges on the front or back, and then do an F or B, and you'll have one of the previous cases. Same thing goes with 12 bad edges. So yeah, check. Make sure to check all three axes. Helps quite a bit. So yeah, that's basics of edge orientation. Trick you can use when doing edge orientation is doing part of it on the normal and part of it on the inverse. So this is useful for stuff like, we'll do 6 bad edges. So here we have 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6 bad edges. And if we mess this up a little bit more, what we can do is we can put 3 on the F or B. So we have this, we have 3 here. And if we do an F or B, we have a 4 bad edge case, right? So we can continue doing this in the regular. So I don't know, I'm not going to mess up where they are, but this isn't really a good case. So what we can do is we can switch to the inverse and get a different 4 bad edge case. But we can actually just trace the edges over to the inverse so we don't have to switch. So the way you do this is you look at your bad edges. Here we have a yellow and orange, and then you'll have a bad edge on in this position on the inverse. So basically, if you have a yellow-orange edge here, you'll have a misoriented edge on the inverse in the yellow-orange spot. So we'll have a misoriented edge here, and then blue and white will have a misoriented edge here, then blue and yellow will have a misoriented edge here, and then blue and red will have a misoriented edge here. So on the inverse, we'll actually have our bad edges here, 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 and here, which is actually just 2 moves to edge orientation. So you can use that trick to get some better edge orientation cases, because that one's not the best. Now that we have edge orientation, we want to get the cube into domino reduction minus a certain number of corners and a certain number of edges. Now we do this to set up to a trigger. So first I'll teach you how to count misoriented edges and misoriented corners. It's pretty simple. If you have a corner that doesn't have your top and bottom colors facing up or down, so like this one would be misoriented, this one would be oriented. So you count the number of misoriented corners. You have 5 on this scramble. For edges, there are 2 ways of doing this. I'll show the popular way and the least popular way. So the popular way is to count the number of edges misplaced. So if you have an E-slice edge that's out of the E-slice, then that's misoriented. And if you have a U/D layer edge that's in the E-slice, that's misoriented. So this is 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. Another way of doing it is just counting edges that are in the U/D layer that aren't supposed to be there. So 1, 2, 3. I'll be counting with the first method that I showed, as I've noticed that to be the most popular. So how do you orient edges and orient corners, and how many should we orient, and how many edges should we orient, and how many corners should we orient? So basically the number is from what trigger we use. So for example, this trigger is just an R prime or whatever, and it will orient 4 corners and 4 edges. So if we set this up to dr minus 4 corners and 4 edges, then we can reduce it into this state and do an R, and we'll have domino reduction. So how do we orient corners and edges? To orient corners and edges, you can do like R or L, and that will orient a certain number of corners and a certain number of edges. And you can just kind of play around with this, like UR, see how many you have, or like DR, see how many you have. In this case, we have 4 corners and 6 edges. Or something else is like F2 L prime, which usually cancels with your edge orientation. But I mean, if you want to be a bit more scientific about it, if your move like R or L is putting E-slice edges into the E-slice and taking U/D slice edges out, like that. So here you will be orienting 4 and misorienting 0, so you orient 4 edges. Here you'd be misorienting 1 and orienting 3, so you'll have 2 more oriented edges. And then with corners, it's pretty easy. If you have an edge, if you have a corner facing you, then that will get oriented. If you have a corner facing to the right or left, that will be not affected. And then if you have a solved corner, that will be unsolved. So you can kind of play around with this and try and get to a case where you know, and I'll go ahead and go over all of the useful triggers that you should definitely know. So the first trigger you should definitely know is this one. It's just 4 corners and 4 edges, and it's just R. Another useful trigger you should know, it's 3 corners and 2 edges, and it's R, U prime, R prime. Another useful trigger you should know is 4 corners and 2 edges, and it's R, U2, R prime. Or, with this case, you can actually do L, F2, L prime to give you some different blocks. This case, it's 3 corners and 2 edges, and it's R, U, R prime. The last case that you should know is this case, where you have 4 corners and 6 edges, and it's R, D2, L, or R, UI2, R prime. So this step, I don't recommend getting stuck on it too much. If you can't find anything off of an EO, and you switched and you can't find anything there, just switch to a different EO. That'll save you a bunch of time. Don't play around on this step too much on each EO, as like there'll definitely be another EO with a better case. So here on this step, if we play around, we can see that if we do B2 L prime, that'll give us 4 misoriented corners and 4 misoriented edges, which we can use to set up to this case. Now, if we want to set up to this case, we have to look at the bars and how pieces are positioned. So here we have on the U layer, we have a bar like this, and make sure you have a bar with the corners facing out and not bar like this. This would be wrong, and that would not give you domino reduction. Also, you want to paint, and you have the same thing on the bottom. Also, you want to make sure to pay attention to your E-slice edges. A lot of time when I see people doing DR, they'll set up to this case, and they'll do that, and they won't have DR because they're missing the edge. Or sometimes I see them set up to DR, but they do like an F on the wrong axis. You want to make sure you're doing an FRR on the adjacent axis to your EO axis. You won't want to be messing up your EO, because that would be bad. Make sure you're not messing up your EO. So that's basically how you do it. Also, when you're setting up to this step, you can do a Z, and you can check out your you'll get a different get a different case on this axis. So for example, this axis we have dr minus 4c 4e, but if we rotate, we have dr minus 5c 4e. And make sure to check both axes, as you can get like a bad case on this, but a good case on this. Alright, so how do we set up into this case? So here we see we need to make this bar, and then the E-slice edges have to be here. So if we're looking here, we have a bar here, or we have a pair here. We have 2 corners like that, our edge here, and our E-slice edges are here. This isn't like a super duper good case. So if you don't get good cases, I recommend just switching. So in this case, I'd probably switch, but for demonstration purposes, I will just show a very quick example. So here you can do that to make that bar, but the E-slice edges are in bad places, so you could do that to get that E-slice edge in a slightly better place. And then you can do D, F2, and now you have the E-slice edges in a good place, and then D, and now you line that bar up with the E-slice edge, and then here we just want to line the edge up with these corners, and now we have another bar, and we can line that up here and do an R, and we have our domino reduction. Now I'll do a quick example with all of the other triggers. So here we have a case where we have domino reduction minus 3 corners and 2 edges. This is also not a super duper good case, but if we look here, this case, we have the bar here in the corner next to the bar, or the pair here in the corner next to the pair, and then this kind of pattern on the bottom. And we also have this case we can set up to, which is pair here, and then this is opposite of the pair, and we have that on the bottom. So looking here, it's kind of hard to set up to either of those cases. I'd probably just switch here, but for demonstration purposes, I'll give an example. So here, we can do U prime B2 to make this, and then U L2, and now we have this thing from this case on the top, and on the bottom, we already have that little pattern there, and then a U2, and then the trigger, and we have domino reduction. Another case we can get is 4 corners and 2 edges. So in this case, we have a bar here and kind of a bar like that here. So first, we want to make the bar like that so we can make a pair. This is also not a good case, so you want to switch. Make sure you're not getting too stuck on certain cases, and that if you have a bad case, to either switch or move on to a different edge orientation. But for demonstration purposes, you make that pair, you can make that bar, and then you you can make that bar by putting that corner, so it's like headlights with that corner, and then lining it up here. Again, make sure you pay attention to the E-slice. If you have a bad E-slice, you can change some like U moves to D moves, and your E-slice will be kind of affected, and so on. Finally, I'll be doing an example of this one. We have 4 bad corners and 6 bad edges. So if we look at this, you kind of have a bar here, and then 2 pairs like that. And the E-slice edges are here and here. Here isn't a really good case. I probably just switch, but we could do D2, R2 to make those 2. And then here, I mean, something like that. Again, please switch, don't get stuck on stuff. But if we do that, the E-slice edges are in bad places. So again, if you want to get your E-slice edge in good places, try switching up like U moves with D moves, and doing your setting up to your case in different ways to try and get the E-slice edges in better places. But here, you can just do that. You just do that, and then maybe something like this, and we have the E-slice in a good place. We can just do our trigger. Now we're at domino reduction. So that's the basics of how to get to domino reduction. In my next video, I'll be showing how to get from here to solved. So yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah.